Good morning, just got to my client's house and we're about to refresh her garden. It's just a little small vegetable garden and let me show you around. A few weeks ago, I got an email from this client asking if we could help refresh their garden space because their previous maintenance team no longer was in business. Since the garden hasn't been touched for a while, we are bringing in the big guns, high quality compost, worm castings, and soil. So her wish list included a lot of herbs. So we have chamomile, thyme, Thai basil, another type of thyme, both flat leaf and curly leaf parsley, sage, chives, tarragon. There's some sage, mint, oregano, more thyme, and here's a tomato plant. So here's another view of all the herbs that we're going to put in. And then over here, this is the salad. Here in the coastal parts of Southern California, we can actually grow salad year round. So I've got some strawberries, we've got variety of lettuces, here's some more lettuces and kale. Now these will only last 6 weeks, that's just the growth cycle of the plant. First things first, we'd like to unload just so we can see all the plants in one spot. So you can see I have corn, I have beans, I have a lot to plant, but these beds are not ready yet. This is one of the horse troughs and we're going to have to remove all of these weeds. I typically do not recommend installing with horse troughs. That's a conversation for another day, but this is what they have, so we're working with it. And this is the other horse trough. You can see the oxalis has really taken over and it's pretty satisfying to reach in there and kind of see where the root is and be able to just identify where it is and then pull, just like that. So then you're removing the entire plant. You can see this one is quite large. And I'm going to take this home and the chickens are going to have a little feast. This plant's actually really hard to get rid of completely just because they self-seed so easily. Fun fact, their seed pods actually launch the seeds. I'm trying to get a clean line of sight by removing all the weeds and then I can assess the irrigation. It was installed by a previous company, so I don't know when it was installed. I don't know how. I need to make sure it is in working condition so all of our new plants can thrive. To watch me prep this bed, I want to take the moment to say I don't typically recommend using horse troughs. You can see right in front of me where it is starting to rust. Rust itself is not the issue. It's during manufacturing that I'm not quite sure what materials are used. And when something rusts, it is actually breaking down. And so the materials, whatever was used, can leach out. So I don't know what it is. I don't trust it myself, so I wouldn't recommend this, but the client wanted to stick with what she had and give it a refresh and try. So refreshes, every single garden's different, but since this garden hasn't been touched in a while, we are using everything. So here's a bag of all-purpose fertilizer. I do like that it comes in smaller bags, so when we are packing for gardens, it's actually really nice to be able to use the entire bag in this one refresh. So here is what it looks like. Plants love this stuff. We put a little sprinkle, and then here I'm going to plant a blueberry. Want to plant blueberries too, and you're in a warm zone like us in Southern California, make sure you are planting a low chill variety. This means they do not need a cold spell to flower, or as many hours at least, and to set good fruit. Most of your big box retailers, or even Costco, where you can find a cheap plant, do not do this work for you. However, most reputable independent nurseries really pay attention to this detail because they want you to be set up for success. So while I've been showing you how to plant the blueberry, Griselle actually took care of weeding this trough, and so I'm going to start filling it up. Also taking a look at why does this irrigation look like this? I have no idea. Anyway, I actually just stabbed the bag and cut it, so when I lift, all the soil just falls right out. I typically like to fill the bed a little bit higher, but since this client is interested in redoing this entire space later, I'm not going to fill it all the way up. So let me bring you a little bit closer and you can see the irrigation is laid out. It's definitely very interesting. I've never seen this before, but anyway, we're using what we have and let's start planting. Mint was actually at the top of the wish list for this garden, so we are going to plant it in its own container because if you know mint, it will take over. As I dig a hole, you can see that there's actually more than one plant, and so I will separate it. Mint grows so fast, you really only need to get one plant, and this particular pot, actually, I was able to separate it and space it out a little bit more. Our plan is actually to let this mint take over the entire bed because the client says she uses a lot of mint. But that doesn't mean we can't plant in the rest of the bed. There's actually so much space that we can use until the mint actually takes over. Now, it can grow pretty quickly, but lettuce only really lasts about 6 weeks in the Southern California garden, especially during the summer. This spot actually gets a little bit of shade and it's protected, and that's why we can plant lettuce here. Now, lettuce at this time of year, it's probably going to last you 4 to 6 weeks, and in that time, the mint will actually start to grow and take over. So I like to make it pretty. And that's why we have a couple different types of lettuces in this bed. We like to alternate just so you have some visual interest. And also, and then when you harvest, it won't look so bare or that you only have one type of plant or one section. You can really spread that out. And I'm planting pretty close together because the goal is that this client is going to harvest often and the plants won't need as much space. To top off with a little bit more fertilizer, and here is the top view of the newly planted trough. Now that we're ready to refresh this big bed, let's review how to refresh your own garden. First, you're going to take out the weeds like we did previously. You're going to take a look at the irrigation, move it over to the side, and then add all your amendments. You're going to add more organic soil. Make sure it's organic because we are growing food here. And I like to just lasagna layer everything in. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be homogeneous. Just add it all in, kind of mix it together, and it's time to do irrigation. Again, we did not design this, just a disclaimer. We are trying to figure out what they were thinking and how they were trying to set this irrigation up. It's definitely unique. So the only thing we could come up with is that they have a curved leader. So I'm referring to the black 1/2-inch tubing that is to the right by Grissel. And in order to make sure that every part of the garden actually gets water, they've compensated with different little elbows for the 1/4-inch tubing. If you have drip irrigation, make sure you are checking it every season. Sometimes there are cracks. I mean, it is in the sun all the time and it can be damaged. Now, the next step is to lay out all our plants. And I like to put it right on top of the bed just so we get a visual of, okay, how many plants did we get and how and where should they all fit? We have to take into consideration which plants are taller, which plants will grow faster, and where the sun is going to be. In the gardening world, we have something called companion plants, and that basically refers to plants that play well together. And for example, we will be putting basil next to the tomatoes, we'll be putting marigolds as well. And right now we're just trying to place all the herbs, and you can see that part of the bed closest to the camera is actually in the shade. So we are putting the lettuces here because they don't tolerate as much sun as some of the other plants. So when you are planning out your own garden and placing your plants, make sure you're paying attention to where the sun is and how it travels through your garden. And right now, as we're planting, it's probably around 11 something in the morning, and the shade is on the part of the bed where the lettuces are going to stay nice and cool and they won't be stressed and fall over and crisp. If you need a visual to help you understand what I'm talking about with how the sun travels in your garden, scroll the video back and then fast forward through and watch the area that's closest to the camera where Grissel is planting. You'll see the sun creeping in and the shade area actually getting smaller as we're planting. The video is sped up about 8 times and we're probably planting for about 30-40 minutes to give you a reference of how fast the sun is actually moving and how the shade area does change over time. Back to what we are planting where. We are mixing the herbs in between the lettuces. The herbs will act as a natural pest deterrent for the tender lettuces because of their strong scent. Also, in 4 to 6 weeks, when the lettuces are completely harvested, the herbs will take over the space previously occupied by the lettuce. Space furthest from the camera, we are planting squash, pole beans, corn, cucumbers, and tomatoes because they require more sun than the leafy greens and herbs. One way to help you remember what to plant where is leafy greens only require 4 to 6 hours of sun, while anything that you're going to eat the fruit of, so let's say the corn, the beans, squash, cucumbers, tomatoes, anything that you are waiting for a plant to flower, then get pollinated, and then fruit in order for you to harvest, that was going to require 6 to 8 hours of sun minimum. While I've covered a lot of general guidelines, the most important thing when it comes to gardening and growing your own food is actually to have fun and to experiment. We want our clients to experience and play in the garden, and to help with that, we like to plant different varieties. For example, in this garden, we put a Stars and Stripes watermelon, we put columnar Greek basil, we put tricolor sage. So I'm going to put in the effort, plant something that you can't buy at the store. That's our philosophy, at least.
Am I covered up? Okay.
I know. We're all done planting, and Grisel's been helping me today. I'll walk you through all the stuff that we just did. So in this first trough, we have watermelon and then mint and some lettuces. Then in this second trough, we have our strawberries and our blueberries. Let me see. Oh, right there. There's a blueberry there. And then I think, yep, there's some more back there. In the big bed over here, we have corn in the corner, and then we have squash right in front. And then on the bamboo, we have cucumbers that are going to climb up, and that's basil right there. There's onions and rosemary to the left, and then the corn is in this corner so it doesn't shade anything as it grows really tall. And then we have tomatoes, marigold, oregano, sage, more marigolds, tarragon, chives, thyme, chamomile, peppers, thyme, and then more salad. So here's the full view of the bed. We tend to overplant to compensate for any normal transplant loss, maybe a couple plants here or there, so we don't have gaping holes in the garden and every space is used up. This is the trough on the left with the watermelon, mint, and salad greens. And then here on the right, this is our small berry patch with strawberries and blueberries. Thanks for watching our refresh today. We are all done, and I hope you picked up a tip or two. If you have any more questions, please drop them in the comments and we'll answer them in another video. It's such a gorgeous day, so we're headed to the beach. See you next time.